was okay. I'll start the prayers. वर्णानामर्थसङ्गानां रसानां छन्दसामपि मङ्गलानां च कर्तारौ वन्दे वाणी विनायकौ। चित्रं वटतरोर्मूले वृद्धा शिष्या गुरुर्युवा गुरोस्तु मौनव्याख्यानं शिष्यास्तु छिन्नसंशयाः निधये सर्वविद्यानां भिषजे भवरोगिणां गुरवे सर्वलोकानां दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। व्यासाय विष्णुरूपाय व्यासरूपाय विष्णवे नमो वै ब्रह्मनिधये वासिष्ठाय नमो नमः। यं प्रव्रजन्तमनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरहकातराजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरमुगिनेदु सर्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानामालयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। व्याप्तं जगत्येन चिदात्मभावात् रज्ज्वा यथा हि चराचरं यत् सन्यस्य सर्वं च सदात्मभावे स्वयं समस्तं च बभूव यस्तु निस्सङ्गनिर्मुक्तिपदं प्रपद्य ब्रह्मात्मभावेन विराजितो यः श्रीसौम्यकाशीशमहेश्वराय तस्मै नमः स्वामी तपोवनाय। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् वन्दे तेजोमयं नित्यं गुरुं ज्ञानप्रभाकरं यस्यैककिरणादेव नष्टा विद्यातमः सदा। जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयादितरतश्चार्थेष्वभिज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्महृदायादिकवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि धर्मप्रोज्झितकैटवोऽत्र परमो निर्मत्सराणां सतां वेद्यं वास्तवमत्र वस्तु शिवदं तापत्रयोन्मूलनम् श्रीमद्भागवते महामुनिकृते किं वा परैरीश्वरः सद्यो हृद्यवरुध्यतेऽत्र कृतिभिः ऋषुभिस्तत्क्षणात् निगमकल्पतरोर्गलितं फलं शुकमुखादमृतद्रवसंयुतं पिबत भागवतं रसमालयं मुहुरहो रसिकाः विभावुकाः। वंशीविभूषितकरात् नवनीरदाभात् पीताम्बरादरुणबिम्बफलाधरोष्टात् पूर्णेन्दुसुन्दरमुखादरविन्दनेत्रात् कृष्णात् परं किमपि तत्त्वमहं न जाने। नमः परमहंसास्वादितचरणकमलचिन्मकरन्दाय जनमानसनिवासाय Good to be back together after a fairly extended break. We'll today step into Canto 5 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Quickly to recall, Canto 1 was Adhikari, Canto 2 was Sadhana, Canto 3 was Sarga, the primary creation, Canto 4 was Visarga, the secondary creation after that, and now Canto 5, the topic is Sthanam. And Sthanam is defined in Bhagavatam as Sthitihi Vaikuntha Vijayaha. Vaikuntha here is not the Vaikuntha Loka, but it's the name of Bhagavan. So it is Bhagavan's glory spread everywhere, and all things as a manifestation of his glory. And if we see one of the main features of this canto, which I'm not going to Bhugola and Khagola. So Bhugola, geography, and then Khagola, the structure of the cosmos. So this is described in very strange terms. For example, they describe islands surrounded by oceans and then surrounded by further islands, so forming concentric rings. And one of the oceans is of salty water, then you have the ocean of pure water, then you have an ocean of alcohol, you have an ocean of milk and curd, and this seems very, very silly. Why would, I mean, obviously, this is not meant to be a uh, actual description of how things are. It is meant, as all things in Bhagavatam, contemplation. So then we see everything in concentric rings and the different worlds, and in each world different kinds of creatures, and in each one there is one particular special devotee who is worshipping Bhagavan in that particular form, and then those stotras are given. So then it forms a very rich word picture in the form of a mandala painting, like the Tibetan paintings that you would have seen, where in the center you have one particular devata, maybe the Buddha or Tara or Maitreya or the Guru, and then there are circles, and in each circle there are different creatures, different things, and they all have their symbolism and meaning within the contemplative uh, ideas of that tradition. The similar thing here, but instead of painting it, it is told with words, and it is meant for contemplation. So the seven higher worlds, Bhuloka is asked, then Bhuva, Suvar, Mahajana, Tapa, Satyam, and Brahmaloka. And then below the lower worlds, Atala, Vitala, Sutala, etc., the Patala, the hellish worlds. Again, this is described in a hierarchy, but it is geometric and it is meant for contemplation in that sense. Otherwise, the Bhagavatam itself says the experience of higher worlds also and lower worlds also are both available here itself. Said in Kapil. Because in different bodies, different experiences that we go through, maybe hellish, maybe heavenly, maybe neutral. And so everything is can be experienced here itself also. So this is meant mainly for contemplation. And but why contemplate like this? Simple meditation on Bhagavan's feet we have, no? We can just do that. The beautiful forms of Bhagavan. But when something simple is given to us, we feel it is not very great. Somebody says, take Ramanama, they're disappointed. If you give Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangate Bodhi Soha as a mantra, that is a good mantra. I'll do. It's a kuch to unique as something stylish and special. What is this Ramanama? How can it be something so? Because if something is simple, we devalue it in our mind. So the simple, beautiful meditation of Bhagavan's form is given. We don't give it importance. So then all these different complicated contemplations are given to purify the mind. And what happens at the center of each of those lokas, one different form of Bhagavan is there. So it brings you back to that only anyway. So I'm not going to delve into those descriptions in great detail. Whoever is interested can read that. It's fairly easy to follow with the translation. Let us look at the stories. And let us pick up the thread of the story where we left it off in the fourth canto. So we were looking at the lineage of Swayambhu, Manu, and Shatarupa. Their three daughters, Akuti, Devahuti, Prasuti, and we saw their lives. Then we saw uh, in the fourth canto the lineage of Uttanapada through Dhruva and others. Now we come to the other brother, Priyavrata. Now, Priyavrata was a chap who, from early childhood, was very fond of his uncle Narada, and he used to spend all his time with him. And from childhood, Narada Muni kept dropping little doses of Vedanta, of Jnana and Vairagya. So by the time he became of age, he felt, I just want to dedicate my whole life to spirituality. I want to give up everything and take sannyasa. Now I will only speak about Brahman. I will only try to perceive Brahman in everything. I'll only think about Brahman. Uh, as like that's very easy to do. But he felt, I want to do that. I want to take up brother to do that. So I won't get married and I won't take up the kingdom and all this work. Now Swayambhu Manu was worried because then who will continue the work of creation? It had to be done. So he called for reinforcements. He called Brahmaji, the grandfather. Brahmaji knew how to deal with. He had experience, no, with Sanat Kumaras and all. Now he had figured out the technique. What he told Priyavrata is, beta, see, you have come with one prarabdha karma that you have to go through. So if you decide to take sannyasa also, your prarabdha is of getting married and being a king. So it will not allow you to remain in sannyasa. You will go there, you will find somebody to get married and spoil the name of sannyasa also, and spoil the name of grihasthashrama also. Better you get married here and live. So if you had that sannyasa prarabdha, then even if no matter how much you want to get married, nobody will allow you to marry their daughter, or no girl will be willing to accept it. But here, naturally, the kingdom is coming to you. Grihastha life is coming to you. That is your prarabdha. Take it up, live through it, and then when it is time, it will drop away on its own and sannyasa will happen. The sannyasa is not something to take a sankalpa and decide that I'm going to be a sannyasi, because the nature of sannyasa is to give up all sankalpas and surrender completely. So if we take a fresh sankalpa there that I want to become a sannyasi, that itself runs counter to the idea of sannyasa. This is the argument given by Brahmaji. And so he convinced Priyavrata. Priyavrata said, okay. And a lot of examples he gave of, how so many people have lived in Grihastha Ashrama. Look at your father, look at me. We all have great bhakti towards Bhagavan. We have knowledge also. We practice spirituality and we do our work also. They are not mutually opposed. To say that work gets in the way of spirituality is not a correct way of thinking. I know it feels like that. I say it every day. That when will I get a break from work? Uh, if we learn how to work properly, then that work itself is an expression of spirit. Everything, nothing can get in the way of spirituality, because whatever we do can become an expression. It's like saying that the room was so full, the auditorium was so full that there was no place left for the music. It can't be, no? No matter how many people are packed in there, but the music will echo through. So no matter how much our life is packed with activity, the music of spirituality will continue to play. We have to be able to hear it. We have to be able to be in harmony, in rhythm. That also means we have to learn to be silent even as we do the things, so that we can hear. So Priyavrata learned that art, and he got married. He had children. He did a fantastic job of governing. It is said that well, he saw that at night it was becoming dark, then people were suffering. So he sent one chariot behind the sun to give light at night. Rural electrification program, which he gave light to everybody. He made sure that sources of light were available for people to extend their lives into the evening. Various other very good things he did. People were very happy with him. And in time, one day he felt, yeah, I mean, I've been living a good life here. He was very happy in his relationship, his wife, with his children, very loving with them all. He felt, now it is time. Enough is enough. And very naturally, organically, he just gave up the kingdom, handed it over to the children, and left for the forest, his tapas, and attained Bhagavan. Now, his grandson was a king named Nabhi. Nabhi did not have any children. He was a very good king, but he did not have any children. And the rishis told him that the reason you are not having children is there is some papa in your past janma. In this janma, you have been very good. The past janma, some lingering papa is there. So let us do an yajna. And then with that yajna will nullify that Purva Janma Papa, and you will have a child. So they did the yajna. They did it beautifully. And Bhagavan himself appeared at that yajna to Nabhi and said, what boon can I give you? And Nabhi was very honest. He didn't say, Bhagavan, give me bhakti, Bhagavan, give me knowledge, keeping something else in his heart. He said, Bhagavan, I have a desire for a child. Give me a child like you. Bhagavan said, very good, you're honest. Done. But there's one problem. No. There is nobody like me. Gopi say Bhagavan is nirasta samya atishaya. There is nobody equal to him, let alone greater. So Bhagavan said, solution. I will only take avatar as your child. Okay? As though I'm going to say no to that. Very good. Sure. So Bhagavan was born as Rishabhadeva. And Rishabhadeva is worshipped not only in our Hindu tradition, but he's the first Tirthankara of the Jains also. Very important person in Indic religion in general. So now this Rishabhadeva, his feature was he was a great yogi. So we don't even know what he was named. This name Rishabha was given to him by the yogis in the kingdom, that he is the best amongst us. Rishabha means bull. So bull amongst yogis, the greatest of yogis, the leader of yogis. That was the. So it is not just today that yogis are entering. At that time. And see, Indra had a ego clash with him. He said, this guy is governing so well, and there are no beggars in the kingdom, and everybody is happy, satisfied. The beautiful thing was, everybody got whatever they needed. And then he had educated the public in such a way that people did not desire more than they needed. It's like Gandhiji said, no, there is enough in this world to meet everybody's needs, but not a single person's greed. So that greed was erased through right spiritual education. So then everybody's needs were met. And beyond that, if they wanted anything, they wanted only to inquire about the Atma, to grow spiritually, to discover something greater beyond the material achievements of the world. Such a beautiful society is possible. Rishabhadeva constructed. Then Indra became jealous. He cut off all the rain. Rishabhadeva said, okay. He used his yoga shakti and he made it rain. He never used it for himself, but for the good of the world, he used all his power. He made it rain. Indra was humiliated. Now, one day, there was a great meeting, a sabha, where all the great jnanis were assembled in the kingdom. And they invited the Maharaja to give the keynote address. He came with all the princes. He had 100 sons. So Yogeshwara, he did everything on scale. He had 100 children. 9 of them became the Navayogis. Their story comes in the 11th canto. They were great Yogeshwaras, great masters, each one of them. The eldest son was Bharata, his successor, after whom this land is called Bharata. Okay. The remaining 81 became Brahmanas. They became priests. They did Paurohityam. They also maintained tapas and everything and lived a very, very austere Brahmana life. And one thing that they should tell us is that jati is not a matter of birth. Varna is not a matter of birth. Varna is a matter of guna and karma. They had the gunas of a Brahmana, they did the karmas of a Brahmana. Therefore, the Brahmanas, even though they were born like Kshatriya family. No. So this whole thing, of caste, is for understanding ourselves and figuring out our Swadharma. Not to look at the other people, judge them, say that they are low, we are high, we are low, they are high, and start politics over. That's not at all the point. The point is to understand us. Anyway, so now Rishabhadeva gave this lecture to all this audience, to his sons. He addresses them as my children. But he's not only talking to his sons, he's talking to everybody, including us. We are all children of Bhagwan. And the way a parent cares for every need of Bhagwan, that is how he governed, of the child, that is how he governed the country. He said, Nayam deho deha bhajam driloke कष्टान् कामान् अर्हते विड्भुजां ये तपो दिव्यं पुत्रकायेन सत्वं शुद्धेत्यस्मात् ब्रह्म सौख्यं त्वनन्तम्. This body, I am Deha, Nayam Deho, Deha Bhajam, for those who have got this human body, okay, this human birth. It is not meant for just indulging in kama. Kashtan kaman, for taking great effort to get lots of different pleasure and enjoyment, which are available even in Vidbhujam, those insects that live in fecal matter. Because for them, that fecal matter is their food. They enjoy it. If they imagine the world filled with food everywhere, they're swimming around in their favorite food and jumping and rolling around and enjoying it. Imagine if we had a world of cake that we could just roll around and luxuriate in, or ice cream, depending on the weather. But it's not meant for that, because that experience can be had even in that insect body. Those pleasures, whether it is eating, producing children, whatever pleasures of the senses, they're all available everywhere else. What is unique in the human birth? We have something called an intellect. We have a higher faculty, and we should use that to reach a higher joy, not just be stuck in the lower joys. So kashtan kaman arhate vidbhujam, they are fit only for those insects. For us, what we have to do, tapo divyam, we have to inquire. Here tapas is not standing on one leg in the forest, covered in ants. No. That tapas, which is of the nature of knowledge, tapa alochana, is for inquiry, understand it, discover the truth of ourselves, the truth of the world. Tapo divyam putrakaha, O sons, yena sattvam shuddhet, by which the mind becomes purified, and brahma saukhyam tvanantam, it takes us to that infinite joy, compared to which all these little pleasures are actually suffering. They're not even joy. Like from our point of view, if we look at that insect rolling around in shit, we don't think, wow, that insect is having such a good time. We, poor thing, it is stuck, it is suffering. That insect is very happy, thinking that it is a pleasure. But we know from a higher perspective that that is not at all a pleasure, it is a suffering. The same way, from the higher experience, all our pleasures are also suffering. Now, Rishabhadeva continued ruling his kingdom. And over time, slowly, his mind became more and more withdrawn. He started living like Avadhuta in the palace itself. At some point, he stopped even wearing clothes. He was not even aware of the body. One day, he just wandered off. The children took over the kingdom. He wandered off somewhere. He would go from city to city, forest to forest. People didn't even know who he was. Some threw stones at him, some threw garbage, some offered flowers to him. Everything he accepted calmly. He kept one stone in his mouth so he wouldn't talk to anyone, even by mistake. Then he adopted what is called Ajagara, which is lie down in one place, not even go for bhiksha. If somebody came there and gave him something, he would eat it, otherwise he wouldn't eat. He'd just lie there and wait for prarabdha. Roaming around, one day he reached Kutakach. Kutakachala is Kurg. What is And there he was wandering in a forest. There was a forest fire, and in that his body was. That is the story of Rishabhadeva. Then his son was Bharata. So Bharata became the king. And imagine if this land, which has had so many great kings before and after, it is called Bharatavarsha. Not even Ramavarsha, but Bharatavarsha. Then how great this Bharata must have been. But over time, he also decided to hand over the reins to his son. And he retired to an ashram in Haridwar side, somewhere there, on the banks of a river called Gandaki. And that's the river in which the Shaligrama stones are formed. And there's an ashram called Pulahashrama. There he booked one kuya, and every day he would do his tapas. He had a very strict schedule. And his upasana was of Surya Bhagavan. So every day he would do hours of Gayatri Japa and go into ecstasy just looking at the sunrise. Now, as he was one day watching the sunrise, one female deer came in and tried to cross the river. It was running from a lion, and that deer was fully pregnant. And that lion roared, and in her terror, that deer miscarried and gave birth to a baby deer. And in fright, that mother deer died in fright and pain. And now here, floundering in the water is this newborn. Obviously, I mean, even you or I would run to save it. Bharata was a advanced spiritual person who had compassion towards all beings. He ran there, took it, cleaned it up, wrapped it in some nice soft cloth so it was warm, and kept it next to him, and then sat down to continue his job. And he had done 2, 3 avartanas of Gayatri. Then he realized that baby must be hungry. So he went here and there and got some milk. And then he had to get a dropper or something and put the milk in that baby deer's mouth and feed it. And then, with its head on his lap, it cuddled up and went to sleep, and he fell in love with that. From that day, all his tapas was with the deer in his lap. First, he was doing tapas with the deer in his lap, thinking of Bhagavan Surya. Then he was sitting in front of Bhagavan Surya and thinking of the deer while chanting Gayatri. After a while, even that Gayatri stopped, only thinking about the deer. Our relationships also happen like that. You sit down for puja, the baby comes and says, Appa, and hugs you. Starts from there. Then before you know it, you have forgotten everything else and you're so wrapped up in that person. Nothing wrong with loving people. Nothing wrong with those relationships. They should not come at the expense of our own self. So now, Raja Bharata became so absorbed in that deer. And see, the thing with this is, other problem with such relationships, that time happens, people move on, things change. The deer grew up and it ran away behind another deer. He ran behind it. Where is that deer? Oh no, my deer. and started looking for it. He found deer tracks and said, "Arey, this is such a sacred place. People should come and do tapas here and this and that." He was blabbering. And missing that deer, he died. And because he was thinking of a deer when he died, he became a deer. But because of the power of all his yogic practice in the previous janma, he remembered whatever had happened. And so in that deer body, he took the sankalpa to continue his tapas. He didn't associate with any other deeds. Went back to Pulahashram. He did his tapas there. He sat with satsang. Whatever could be done in the deer body, he kept doing. And then one day that body dropped and he was born again as a human being in a uh, Brahmana home. Now that father was a very orthodox man and did a lot of yajna yagas, porohityam. He wanted to teach his son Gayatri Mantra. He tried. One Chaturmasya, 4 months he tried to teach him only one Gayatri Mantra. But this Bharata was so careful not to show any sign of intelligence, any sign of capability. Because then people will drag you into samsara. So he lived like a Jada. That's why he's called Jada Bharata. After 4 months, the best he could say was Om Bur 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 Lada Swaha. That's all. Father gave up. In misery only, he went to an early grave. Those brothers and of his were there. They gave him whatever odd work was there around the house. He didn't do any of it properly. Messed up everything that he was given. He would never refuse any work, but never do anything properly. And finally, they thought, okay, let's keep him as a scarecrow. You just go sit in the field. But he had love for all beings. All beings had love for him. Nobody was scared. They came, ate the fill of grains and went. All Prarabdha coming and going. One day, some Kapalikas came. They had planned to conduct a human sacrifice. But that person they had caught for the sacrifice escaped. So they were looking for a replacement. And they found Bharata. Nice, healthy fellow, strong. Okay, chalo, take him. They took him, gave him bath, washed him nicely, fed him biryani and all. He ate well, happily. Then they said, bend down. He bent down. And that guy was about to lop off his head. That Bhadrakali could not take it. She came charging out to the Murti, thrashed all these Apalikas, beheaded them. In Bhagavatam says she played football with their heads and all. Quite gory. Because Gauri, so it has to be. But what did Bharata do? Did he do one stotram? No. At least thank you. He just walked off. A good chance had come to give up the body. Bhagavan came and spoiled everything. He went. Next Prarabdha had to come. But we are almost out of time. So the next Prarabdha came, that is Raja Rahugana. Now, Raja Rahugana was a king on his way to meet Kapila Maharshi, going in a palanquin. And one of the palanquin guys ran away. So they made Bharata stand there. No, he was walking, okay, he never refused. But he was trying to avoid stepping even on one worm or an ant or anything. He was dodging here and there. And here and the palanquin was shaking. The king said, go properly. And the others all pointed to him and said, he is the fellow. King said, what is this? You have been carrying everything for so long. No? You're so weak. You don't have a healthy body also. That's why you're struggling so much. And Bharata said, if I'm the body, then I'm carrying all this. If I'm the body, I'm walking. If I'm the body, I'm fat or thin or whatever. I'm not the body. The Raja said, but I think you are some great yogi. He got down and he said, please explain. So Bharata said, I'll tell it to you simply in few minutes because the class is going to get over. So I won't tell you very elaborately. Listen carefully. See, what are our bodies? That mud becomes plants, becomes animals, that becomes food, and that food modified only is the body. So mud in another form is this body. So here 4 clumps of mud are rolling on top of the earth, which is one big clump of mud. There are 4 little clumps of mud going. On their shoulders, they are carrying one more clump of mud called a palanquin. Inside that, one more clump of mud is sitting, saying, I am the king and I am the master. Arey, you are the master? No, last Janma I was a king and you would have been a master. And you would have been my servant. Next Janma, again somebody else will become the king. We will both serve him. These are not permanent things. What is permanent is that life within you which knows that I am this, understand that, seek that, and free yourself from all. And there's a very beautiful, elaborate metaphor of a caravan going through the forest of samsara. We don't have time to get into that, but you can definitely read it. It's excellent non-detailed reading, very interesting points for Canto. So that's the fifth canto in a hurry, in a way. Mainly why the hurry is because I'm waiting to get to the sixth canto, which has one of my favorite stories, the Adamilopakhyaana. Next. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. प्रविश्य मम वाचमिमां प्रसुप्तां सञ्जीवयत्य किल शक्तिधरस्वधाम्ना अन्याश्च हस्तचरणश्रवणत्वगातीन् प्राणान् नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यं कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि। हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे। जीवन स्मरणं गोविंद गोविंद। Thank you very much and see you all in 2 weeks.